Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the last resort. By the way, I apologize for having a gap in 90 Day Fiancé content. I was busy with the 15th and other requests that were coming in, and I got backed up with my to-do list, so I hope you accept my apology. Let's watch.
If you got your then what's the difference?
I sort of have a funny curiosity about trying to decode those bleeps. Let's go back.
What the does that have to do with anything? If you got your then what's the
If you got your DS'd and I got my, I mean, the poetic follow-up to that is I got my V, what's the verb? I got my V poked. I got my V stabbed. No, I got my V effed. I got my V effed. But I don't think that's what I think she used a different convention for the next part of that phrase. I think she just said something like, if I got D, I think that's what she said. I don't know why I'm interested.
If you got your then what's the
Yeah, it's like I'm not good at lip reading, so it was something. Do you know? Within reason, put it in the comments if you're into that, if you want to.
I'm here. I sacrifice everything to be here with you, and I move from.
If we had a dime for every time someone in Asuelu's position said that phrase, I've sacrificed so much for you. That's not an excuse to. That's not a get out of jail free card. It's not a justification to mistreat your partner. You know, so many times, whether it's the American who goes to another country or, you know, I get the sentiment. It's like, look how much I'm doing for you. Okay, but I think 9 times out of 10, whenever we hear that phrase, it's not a justification and not an excuse for what they're trying to excuse.
Samoa, because I want to be with you, and I'm so sorry that I screw up and things like that.
Okay, well, you can't.
Yeah, I keep trying to figure out when he says I'm sorry, what's really behind that. And I think there might be some remorse. He does cry about it, but like with Tom Sandoval, there's a version of crying while you're saying sorry where you're legit remorseful. There's also a version of where you're crying when you're saying sorry that you're just sorry and you feel bad for yourself. There's a version where you feel bad for yourself and for the other person and you cry, which is fine. But if you just feel bad for yourself, that's not actual, mature, compassionate, empathetic remorse, which is necessary for apologies. And the more we hear of his sorry, and we see a lot from Kalani saying like, okay, well, show me in your actions. And that what that tells me is I've heard sorry over and over and over again. Now, I'm guessing it's not black and white. I'm guessing that Asuelu has changed. I do remember him in previous seasons seemingly actually changing. But if Asuelu says something like, you know, the way he says is so flippant. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry. The way that you would say if you forgot to pick something up at the store. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I did that. Can we move forward? Instead of, I have a big problem here. And the way that he's framing it, it's like, not only are their transgressions equal, but hers is worse. So she didn't do anything against the rules. He did. He was the one who cheated. He was the one who deceived. He's the one who lied. He's the one who made all those choices to get to that infidelity. So, yeah. Is it possible that they could recover? Well, we'll see. Maybe the therapist will fix them. You probably already know because you've watched ahead more than I have.
All right, couples ready. On your marks. Get set. Go.
All right, come straight.
Forward. Right there. Nope, right in front of you. Yep.
All right, that's 5. Keep walking. Stop. Ah.
Oh.
Okay.
Forward, right? What the are you doing? Back!
Come to me.
Some of you might think, and I think they did as well, that this exercise is, you know, not really serious. And some of you might even be thinking that this is just stunt therapy for visual purposes for the show. And it might be that. But it is something that these sort of retreats will do. As a couples therapist, I don't do things like this, but I have seen this be used in an effective way. We'll see how the therapists react. You might think like, well, how does this represent the relationship and what good would this do? But for some, it can absolutely illuminate a problem. It accentuates things. It gives a chance for the evaluators and maybe the participants themselves and the group members, because they're basically in group couple therapy, to be able to see the differences. And I didn't think I would see anything of interest. I thought it would just be sort of silly, but we just saw something that is very illuminating about Kalani and Asuelu's relationship. Asuelu has a blindfold on. He has no idea where anything is. He only has Kalani to tell him. Just imagine that, right? You might get a little bit of a mental picture of the obstacle course, but if you've ever done anything like this, you put the blindfold on and you get maybe 5 feet away from your home spot and you have no idea where you are. We've played games like this before with my family at family reunions and stuff, and it can be really fun. People, and I've played the game. I will think I'm facing toward the target, like say north. I start facing north. I put the blindfold on, and there's a little bit, and I think, and I take the blindfold off. I'm like so far afield, facing a completely different direction. A lot depends on visual cues, right? Especially if you aren't used to not having those. Anyway. So Asuelu, understandably, has no idea where to go and where he is in relation to the objects, and yet Kalani is barking at him, especially in relation to Jovi. Jovi is, has a different approach, and you see, it kind of breaks my heart because you see Asuelu trying, he's like, oh, okay. And she even will ridicule him. This is what she did in the beginning. This is what I would refer to sometimes. Now, beyond a certain point, her attitude or tone with him, we could argue, is justified given his behavior. But in the beginning, at the very least, from what I remember, there wasn't any justification in the beginning, seemingly, for her treating him like that. This is where systems theory comes into play. It's so easy to look at Kalani and Asuelu and think that, well, Asuelu is a child, period. He just is. And yeah, she can be overbearing sometimes, but that's just justified sometimes for Asuelu. But through systems theory and observation of humans, as a lot of systems therapists like myself, marriage and family therapists, relational therapists like myself will learn and then observe ourselves, is that it takes 2 to tango, essentially, or in a larger system, it takes 10 to tango. And it can be observed that if Asuelu had a different sort of partner in the beginning, he might have had childish tendencies and irresponsible tendencies, but in theory, it wouldn't have been as pronounced, and it wouldn't have gone this far down the road. If Kalani didn't have that complementary role of ridicule, talking down, looking down, superiority, they both feel insecure, but her way of dealing with it is to overcompensate, and his way to deal with it is to avoid, is one simplistic way of putting it. And so in the beginning, now the opposite could be said, is that she might have had a tendency to talk down to someone, but because he was childish, it made her worse, which made him worse. They both did this together. And we see now that she's engaging in that. She's stressed out, right? That's how they amp it up, right? The therapists were wise to have them be in a competition, right? And I'm sure they understand that it doesn't really matter, but it kind of feels like it matters. So you're trying to win. And Kalani, let's just rewind that and watch again.
Forward, right? What the are you doing? Back!
Come to me, come to my voice.
Now, maybe Asuelu is just like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't hurt my feelings, and it's all for fun. Maybe Kalani means it that way, but I'm reminded of the way that she treated him in the beginning. I'm not saying it was abusive by any means, really, and I don't know their relationship, but I use this as a jumping off point. If you are a Kalani, well, if you have a lot of history or significant relationships in your past and current where you have an Asuelu type character in your life, whether a spouse or a best friend or someone in your family that you're always taking care of, in all likelihood, you were socialized to be that way growing up. You have traumas that make it so that you compensate by being that sort of person. You need an underfunctioner to distract you or to make you feel like you matter or to make you feel like your relationships are secure. I mean, some overfunctioners need an underfunctioner because they will say, well, if I just had an equal partner, they could leave me, whereas an underfunctioner needs me and thus I feel more secure. It makes sense, right? If you're not aware of it, if you have attachment insecurities as a result of previous relational traumas, even if they were minor, you can come from a family where there wasn't any overt trauma and your family was just a little standoffish. And they might not have even been standoffish about love and attention, but they were standoffish enough, or there were too many kids or something, or there was some kind of strife when you were 1 to 3 years old. Or you don't have to come from an obvious mistreatment environment in order to develop a personality that leads to, especially the Kalani's version of overfunctioning. It's not severe. It's just enough that is noticeable to me, seemingly. And so what I'm saying is that if you have a history of that, of seemingly having a lot of complaints about, partners being irresponsible and stupid or ridiculous or lazy or not pulling their weight or something, it's possible, of course, you want to talk to a clinician about that, but it's possible that you sought those people out because you're an overfunctioner, because of your issues. And they played into each other and they exaggerated each other. Now, in therapy and through healing and through awareness and through working together, we can help people to reverse that trend of polarization, of more overfunctioning, more underfunctioning. And the likely scenario in the end is that there's always a slight underfunctioning on the Asuelu's position, and there's always a slight overfunctioning, but it never gets out of control is the thing. We can imagine with Kalani Asuelu that they're, at least for me anyway, because it's hard to think systemically. It's so much easier to blame one person. And that's the magic of systems theory, is that it's so much better at explaining things like this. There's a possibility that if they had therapy earlier on, that 90% of Asuelu's concerning behavior, even going back to the very beginning in the first season when he's like crying or pouting in the room inside while his 3-year-old boy is having a birthday party outside, and he's like, I don't want to participate because it was like over something really minor. Even things like that, it's possible that it was due to the system doing that. Not to say that she's to blame, that's just a continuance of linear thinking. Systems thinking is neither is to blame and everyone is to blame, is the way that we say it. Meaning that neither one of them are to blame, but all of them are to blame for developing a pattern that results in the system acting the way that it does. We think of a system as an entity. We don't single out an individual and look at them. We have to understand them as embedded within a system. Of course, you got to think of the sociocultural system and the political system and the gender system beyond that. But it is interesting to see. I didn't think I would see anything worth talking about, but right away, Kalani's just, her tone of voice, the ridicule, the laughing at him. Like I said, maybe he's okay with it, but I think it is notable.
Oh, you're in the circle.
Here?
To your right. Yep, there.
Baby,
So you hear, and they're doing a good job editing and contrasting. You see Joe, and maybe the therapists are going to talk about this with them, and you hear the way Jovi. Now, the conclusion, maybe would be, from some people, would be, well, Yara is just smarter than Asuelu. But imagine the way that Jovi was talking. You have blindfold on, and imagine the way that Jovi was talking to you, as opposed to the way that Kalani is. Kalani is ridicule, and like there's this moment that's kind of really exemplifies it.
Keep walking. Stop. Ah.
Oh.
Okay.
Forward, right? What the are you doing? Back!
See, like, it's so unnecessary because he's trying to go fast and she goes right, and he for a second goes left and then goes right, And just as she said, but then she says, "What the F are you doing? Go back." Well, he doesn't know where he is. When you say right, he's like trying to take a guess with his body as to what a right angle. Plus, you know what I'm saying? And then that, just imagine that voice is your only tether to the outside world. And this can not only exemplify the way that you talk to each other, but it can exemplify trust and what you do with that trust. I mean, he is handing over a lot of trust. That's another aspect of exercises like this. And how do you hold that trust? And what gets in the way of you seeing trust? And I'm guessing for Kalani is the differentiation is plummeting because of they're on display. She's not happy with Asuelu as well. That's another factor, but it doesn't really. I don't think she's operating from that place of resentment right now. I mean, maybe she is. That's interesting. I mean, that would make more sense. But anyway, I just want you to think about tone of voice, the kinds of things that run through the mind and the sort of motivations that an overfunctioner has, and that it just always defaults to. Because like when Kalani talks to him with that tone of voice, particularly when I always just think about the first couple seasons, because we're in a zone now where kind of all bets are off about this sort of thing because of the amount of damage that's been done over time, not just with the infidelity, but everything, you know. So in the first couple seasons, the way that their dynamic was, it's so much easier to point at him and be like, oh, what a child. But it's equally important that when we're trying to fix situations like this, that we talk about Kalani. We don't say Asuelu is an idiot child, and we don't say Kalani is a tyrant. We say that each is trying to do the best that they can, and if they had some more differentiation, some more awareness around their patterns, they can alter it. I do this all the time. I'll be when I am at my best, I'll be in a situation with my wife or with a friend or something, and I will have this repetitive problem of some degree. And I'll think, when I'm at my best, I think, okay, my conscious mind is saying the problem is the other person, or maybe even the problem is me. But it keeps happening, and even though I feel like I'm aware of the problem, it keeps happening. Okay, so what is the dance between me and this other person? What are we doing in sequence, internally and externally, behaviorally, perceptually, that is heading us down this road? Because we probably both aren't starting out trying to go down this road. And what are the assumptions I'm having, and how do I perceive things? How do I react to things? What's underneath all that? And once you kind of figure that out. So I'm guessing for Kalani right now, she is afraid of shame. She's afraid of, I don't know, being seen as a lesser couple. Maybe even racism is involved when you think about Jovi and Yara, and she has some history about that. Maybe she even has history about doing physical competitions in school. I think all of us have some sort of traumas around PE, right? And maybe that is eclipsing her ability to take notice of his feelings at the point. She has the capacity for empathy. And, I'm really stretching it. It's just a silly exercise, but I think it's a good jumping off point.
Come to me, come to my voice. Oh, you're in the circle.
Here?
To your right. Yep, there.
Baby, right! Right, yes. Didn't break. Come on,
Run,
How far?
Run. Keep coming. All right, you're done.
Right!
Sorry, out, please.
There, right.
Yep.
Right there.
You hear the tone of voice? Even if you think this is just a silly exercise, like, why that tone of voice? He can't see. She says right, but he doesn't know how far right. He keeps going right. Is that 6 inches right, or is that 6 feet right? He's like, I don't know. And like I said, I'm guessing, I don't know how many people are going to agree with me on this, because I'm pretty sure everyone hates Asuelu. It's not about hating or liking. It's not about saying that she's a jerk face. It's about illuminating a part of their pattern that I think is worthy of me discussing. I don't know about them, but I can talk about in general so that we can all learn something.
Now run. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, she walks away. Jesus. Now, like I said, maybe it's because of the resentment of everything that's happened. That would make sense. But I do think that it is telling the way they did this, and I'm guessing the therapist will see that.
Trust.
I just want to win.
The only person I know left. Right.
Communication-wise, that wasn't too good. She was a little bit cursing at him.
Yeah, that's the purpose of this. So it was pretty obvious, especially in relation the contrast between Jovi and Yara.
Kalani and Asuelu, during the obstacle course, they were kind of frustrated with each other. You can see Kalani started getting upset, Asuelu shut down. So to me, communication is a problem, but I also see some issues with control within this relationship as well.
Yeah, and that's a good observation as well, that Asuelu shut down. I mean, I don't think we saw a clip of him shutting down. I think he might have been shutting down afterwards. But yeah, that is part of it, right? That he would shut down and then she would say, "You're shut down, you're acting like a child, you're avoiding," or something. It doesn't make it right. And maybe you could argue that Asuelu is responsible for 70% of the pattern. Those things can be said, but yeah, that's a good observation. Good to see.
Give me 4 steps. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, stop.
Down. There you go.
Good, Molly, good.
Right, stop, slow down. Right. That. I think he can see.
Don't cheat, big guy.
Slide to the right. Slide to the right. Stop.
You know you're not listening to anything I'm saying?
Hang on,
Yeah, at first I thought, well, maybe he just memorized and is taking a risk by doing the slalom course. But then, yeah, picking up the object without any sort of searching around with his hands, he's obviously cheating, yeah. And what does that say? I'm guessing the therapist will have something to say about that. With Ed, I don't know. It's hard to tell. With Angela and Ed, really, and Jovi and Yara as well, I can't tell how much. There's always some level of shenanigans, right? There's some level of scriptedness or manufacturedness. With Ed, there's been a lot of things that he says that I don't know if it's really an indication of how he feels. Or because he kept saying, "I want to win, I want to win, I want to win." I don't know if that's how he really feels or he just wants to say something, or, I mean, it does fit in with his my hypothesized issue that he has. So, I don't know.
You can see over here for sure. He's grabbing everyone without even like filling in the sand.
Reach over to your left. Boom.
Okay.
1 slide to the right.
You popped the balloon.
Come to your left a little bit.
Oh!
Great teamwork. He can see the whole thing.
Walk straight. Fast as you can. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. There we
Good
go.
job, all right.
And Kelly and Jovi at least demonstrated the most empathy and differentiation around it. So does that say something? I don't know, but it could. It could say something. And of course, Michael and Angela, Michael is still on Zoom, so they can't do it together.
Pretty good.
Yeah, you did see
You
that.
guys are 1 minute, 10 seconds.
Cool.
1 minute and 54 seconds. Good job.
Did they beat us? They beat us?
Yeah.
I thought we did well. She went through perfect.
We won.
We won.
Yeah, we did.
We won.
Good job.
And I guess another purpose, whether it's stated or not, is to have an icebreaker. I was thinking that this would be one of those activities that you would do at one of these retreats for couples as an icebreaker, also as a way to build camaraderie, to say like, hey, we did it, you know, building some level of a bond.
Good job, Ed. Let me see if you can see out that mother. You went too damn fast.
Let me see it.
Hell yeah, look at there. Ed, you a mother trip.
So that's cheating, huh?
Yeah.
This is therapy.
the course.
You're supposed to be taking this serious.
That was not teamwork. We can all tell that you can see.
Yeah, again, possible shenanigans, but if this is legit the way that it's edited, and he actually thinks that he's convincing people that he studied and memorized the course and has some sort of supernatural daredevil ability to see the world while not being able to use his eyes. If he believes that to be true, then that says something. Immaturity, desperation to be superior, fits with one conceptualization of him. Narcissistic personality disorder, which I'm not diagnosing him with, is something that's talked about a lot on the internet, and the way that people talk about it, it doesn't include one of the key features, particularly for those with moderate severe narcissistic personality disorder, is that it is obvious that they are bragging and that they are desperate and that they are insecure. They don't usually get away with it. They might get away with it with people that they don't know that well, or maybe even with large crowds, because the large crowds don't really know them that well. But if you're close, even mildly, to someone with narcissistic personality disorder, they shoot themselves in the foot. That's why we call it a disorder, because the individual is terrible at doing what they're trying to do. They are trying to establish themselves as superior, but their desperation is so strong that they overlook how bad it makes them look in the end. And so someone could, with narcissistic personality disorder, in a situation like this, be so desperate to win the obstacle course and be so eclipsed to, they have the mental capacity to understand the bigger picture. That doesn't really matter who wins, that if they cheat, it isn't actually the spirit of the game, that you might actually go from just doing the game authentically to being maybe seen as the worst person in the entire group if you cheat. But all that is cognitively available and understood by them, but that's all eclipsed because of the overwhelming need to be superior and to be better. And they don't do it in all contexts is the thing. People with narcissistic personality disorder, they'll get triggered in different contexts depending on what they attach to their ego. And also, people with narcissistic personality disorder have some wisdom sometimes where they say, well, that's going too far. Unless they're very severe, and then they start drawing lines over hurricanes and talking about how expensive their paintings are selling for and that kind of thing. So for Big Ed, it's possible that he was eclipsed to all those obvious things, and he just needs to win. He cheats, he wins, and he's like, but I won, and people are now saying that I cheated, and that is seriously going to threaten my superiority, which I need to be present, especially now that we're in this kind of weird environment. And I need to be seen as smart, and I need to be seen as capable, and I'm going to fight that. So let's see what he does. All right, well, let's adjourn there. And everyone, please, I want to remind you to take care of yourself, truly. If you're going to take care of yourself, you have to know your needs. You have to check in with yourself. Know your needs in general. Have a connection with your emotions, with your impulses, with your feelings, with what affects you, your moods, your value, your agency, your worth. All those things are, to some extent, required to take care of yourself. So if I say take care of yourself, it also includes maybe 10 years of therapy to work on those things so that you can effectively take care of yourself and get other people to take care of you so you can take care of others. And that does it for that episode.